Welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
And I'm co-host Scott.
And today we'll be going through chapters 46 through 50 of World Serpent Arcanist. And I tell you, this is we're getting almost that last 10 chapters. We're almost there.
It's always a roller coaster.
And before we get started, again, we always like to thank our everybody for listening and watching. Do always ask you to show us a little bit of love by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, whatever platform you're listening to, whatever you can do for us. We definitely do appreciate it. Do also want to mention that the Frith Chronicles wiki and the Capital Station Discord server, the links are down in the description section below. That way you can go over there, join in on the fun, and look into some further information as far as the bestiary goes. If you didn't get a chance or missed the opportunity to do the first bestiary, that information has been updated since then. And remember, we are getting our Nickelin plushies.
Yes.
So that's going to happen soon, hopefully. We'll be patient, though. Chronos Warlock is going to be coming out in about 2 weeks, a little bit less. So we are super excited about that. And then we have Labyrinth Arcanist coming out December 10th. So that'll be coming around the corner here in about a month. And with that, let's jump on into chapter 46, Heading East. I really want to know how Gentle's map works in the map room.
It sounds so cool.
Sonar? Like, like she can zoom it out, zoom it in. Like, does it just keep going to the east because there's nothing there? Like, how far out can it go? And would the tree show up on it?
It seems like it should, but you feel like they would notice if like a giant tree that's like the size of 8 battleships or whatever it's described as being. Like, this isn't like a little branch in the ocean. Like, this thing stands out.
Right. It's a fairly significant size thing. So thankfully, Volke is utilizing his time during this to work on his finer motor skills. He's working on his lockpick ability. He's also feeding Moss, the mouse, and he's actually feeding it blood.
It fits, honestly.
I mean, she's described as having red eyes. Why not? I guess it solidifies just the creepiness of her. So we do have Zelfrey basically wearing all black. So he's kind of going through this like goth emo phase, I think.
Emo Zelfrey. I'm just picturing with a good like little hair flip going on.
You'd have to let his hair grow back out. I don't know if he got the chains hooked all over. Oh, he could turn Traces into chains. There we go.
He could. He get some ripped jeans going on.
Hey, he'd be pretty cool looking still anyways.
I dig it.
This is where Volke kind of wonders how many children of Moss there are, and he probably concludes that there's just like hundreds. Because again, she's the one that produces all the doppelgangers and all the mimics. We don't get any kind of indication outside of, I think, Zelfrey and Karna are the only 2 children that we know are Arcanist from Moss, at least in this part of the series. So we just don't know how many people attempt her trial of worth and actually come out with one. So after guard duty, Volke goes back up to his room and he practically runs into himself. Granted, this is also early in the morning, so he just came off of his guard duty. I imagine he probably like had a moment of like, who the hell are you?
Why are you me?
It's like the Spider-Man meme, you know?
Everyone's just pointing at each other.
Yeah. He realizes that Karna is in his room. I really want to know why Karna is in his room as him.
I feel like Karna's just sitting there like, you know, it would be hilarious.
She's probably like, I'm bored. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to turn into him. So that way when he comes in, he's going to be like, what the? That I could totally see happening and would not put it past her whatsoever.
Nope, it fits.
Oh, yeah. So she, on her way out, almost gives Volke a kiss. But again, she is like as Volke. So it would be Volke kissing Volke. Like,
whatever floats your boat, I guess.
There's so many questions that come at that I want to ask, but I don't want to know. So I'm just going to not even bother. She basically tells him that she's still in love with him, that she's banking on Addie and Volke not working out. she does hope that Volk continues to believe that him and Addie won't work out, so that way they can be together, and it's just like a young puppy love kind of thing, so that Karna can claim Volk for herself. And towards the conclusion of this chapter, Volk and Evianna are just kind of continuing to train. I want to say that she's trying to honestly outpace Volk in his true form with her regular, not even just like her non-true form, but the fact that she's a few years apprentice to him, so he already has a good idea of what's going on with his powers. Granted, she's training way harder than he ever did because he was a lazy bum, but she's honestly trying to outpace him as a true form.
That brings us into chapter 47, Coming of Age. So we do realize that there are other ships that are tailing them, and those pretty much have to be aided by some sort of creature. Since they're riding on Gentle, she's not suspect to the winds, so she's just kind of swimming along as she goes. So in order for them to keep up, they also have to have some sort of Eldrin that's supporting their trek. We do get Volk having some fun, strange dreams and just kind of being like, yeah, thank you, Adelgis, which is just Adelgis, I feel like, doing his part. He's like, you should have a good night. Yep.
Probably doing that.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
And who shows up at Volk's door other than Addie? And she is super excited. She says that she healed with her flame. So this was something that we talked about a while ago, being able to use the evocation and manipulation kind of at the same time. She wants to show him. So they run outside and she's like, I'm going to burn you with fire. And in comes.
At least she warned him.
She did warn him. Better than when he worked with Fane. He's like, oh, you just melted my flesh. So that was painful.
Sorry.
Evianna comes running in, yelling, not about how, like, I'm a princess. I am going to take care of this. You are not going to do this to my man. So just a funny moment of them realizing, oh, Addie's told him ahead of time. She's going to heal him. Like, this is all planned out. She does, and she's super excited. She's like, oh, I'm going to be true form now. This was everything it took. And Volk's like, I don't really know what I did to get it, so that might not actually work for you. And she gets really disheartened and leaves. And it's this really roller coaster ride of emotions with Addie that by the end of it, I think Volk's sitting there like, I don't know what just happened.
He's like, because he mentioned that it just kind of happened. Like Luther just kind of transformed. There was no like progression of, oh, and it was a couple days. No, he just kind of, it just happened.
Yes. And we saw with Roshan, it just happened as soon as he met the criteria. So it doesn't seem like that's going to get her to her true form. So she's back to the drawing board, it seems.
But we should definitely take a look at the fact that she just created new magic. She's able to use two different types of base magic to create a new magic, essentially. She's just like Toph. When Toph found out that she could metal bend.
Yeah, she's honestly creating her own new age of magic in a way, because there's a lot of other possibilities when you consider so many other types of magic that this could work with. So curious to see kind of where that goes, but it doesn't seem like the discovery itself is going to get her there. We do also find out that it is 5 days until Evianna is of age, and she's very worried that essentially they're going to find the World Serpent and she's going to die before she gets to be an adult. Considering everything she's been through, I feel like she's kind of already an adult. Like, this is one of those, like, age is just a number. You are more mature than the vast majority of people out there.
Yeah, I mean, and she's also very insistent about telling everybody how many days left she has until she's an adult.
I'm 14 and a half.
That half makes a difference. Okay, I have 5 more days.
Yeah. Volk does reassure a little. He's like, hey, the future isn't set. It's just kind of like generic destiny, so you'll probably survive.
That would be pretty shitty. The day of her birthday happened upon the World Serpent and it not going well. With that, we jump into chapter 48 of Black Sky. Hey, it's finally her birthday. Yay. So, do you think that when Evianna was a princess, do you think they did one massive birthday party, or do you think they did like a week of birthday, like celebrated the whole week?
It seems like it's a whole week type of thing. You get a whole little festival,
Yeah.
at least on the big birthdays.
What about you, Scott? Do you have one big whole birthday, or like a whole week of birthday?
No, I'm barely like a day of birthday.
I feel that. Usually it's the like, oh, it's my birthday. And then my wife makes sure that she and reminds me.
That's about how it goes too. It's like, oh, wife said something. Oh, mom said something.
Just so happen we see Riker coming out of his room, and I feel
Ooh.
like folks like, what do you like? And is something wrong? Like, are you okay? Like, do I need to get something? Like, and he's just kind of like, I need to get out of the room for a little bit and go go talk to people. Kind of, I feel like he needed this time in the room by himself to kind of feel better, come to terms. There we go. I'll say come to terms with becoming the World Serpent Arcanist, and that kind of pressure being put on him. So he's deciding that he needs to socialize and go to see other people for the time being, at the very least. And as they're staying out there on Gentle's back, all of a sudden the sky goes black, and Volk's like, "This isn't even like an eclipse or a level of skies went black. This is complete and total darkness." And then this giant beam of light shoots up into the sky, because that's not ominous or anything.
I honestly pictured like Tears of the Kingdom when you like mark something. You just go, "Mm."
Oh, like a waypoint.
Yes, that's what I pictured. It's like it's way more exciting than that, but that's how it happened in my head.
So Moss starts freaking out in his pocket, because Volk keeps Moss in his pocket in his coat the entire time, and she is just mouse freaking out like it's about to get eaten by a cat. And I guess the smart thing was that basically the Master Arcanists were like, "Hey, that's enough of that. Everybody get the hell inside right now, because we don't know what's happening, what that was, if that's good or not. So we should probably go inside." Volk happens to stumble across a familiar face, and he notices Grant, the Griffin Arcanist, even though they've been on the ship for about 2 months now.
There's not that many people in the guild. Like,
And it's not like you're in a city.
it's just baffling.
Like, how did he, like, not in the galley when they were eating, or out on Gentle's back, or literally anything? Didn't happen to stumble across Grant at any point in time.
He didn't notice the griffin. Like, see that and be like, oh, I wonder who the Arcanist is.
Right, especially because it's be a younger one like Bedivere is, and apparently his brother, and I feel terrible because I totally forgot his brother's name
I don't have it either.
because it wasn't specifically stated in this chapter. But one thing they did mention is that the Arcanist mark on the forehead is dependent on what sex the Griffin is. So if it's a male Griffin, the mark on their forehead is going to have the lion head. If it's a female Griffin, it's going to have the eagle head.
Super cool.
I thought that's freaking awesome. Hexa declares that they need to have a party for Evianna's coming of age. And like any good party, they have games and they have drink and food, and then they bring out the rum.
But where's the rum?
Well, we get to drink the rum this time. Now everybody's getting all crazy, wild and crazy, letting their hair down. I love this scene that Nicholin getting drunk. I don't know what it is about Nicholin getting drunk, but he's just hilarious.
Something exciting will happen.
He's that guy you would want to get drunk with just to watch. But you're the one that is drinking with him, so that way you can't be responsible for taking care of said drunk friend. Like, Nicholin is claiming that he is in his own right a god Eldarin, and that because he's able to manipulate gravity, that is why. And he starts like picking people up, and people are throwing up, and everybody's just having a good time. He's creating fun mischief. I imagine that anybody sober would probably be like, that doesn't look fun, but that's a wild night. Okay, just gotta let it be. And I always picture Nicholin passing out in like a mug of ale.
Somewhere inappropriate.
Yeah, just passed out like along inside of the cup, or just some random place. Volk is kind of walking around talking to people, socializing. He sees Fane and Moonbeam kind of off in the corner. They're talking to each other. And honest to God, like this is one of the one of the most awkward conversations that Moonbeam has. And again, we're talking about Delgis, so that's a pretty high standard. And like he's actually having a two-sided conversation, talking, not listening to thoughts. And Fane is just like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? This isn't normal.
It's so great though.
And then Intelligence is like, well, this person's thinking that we're weird, and that person is thinking this. And then Volk is over there listening, even though he's trying not to listen. And he's just trying to practice his charm and charisma. And the best thing I relate Intelligence to is he's basically like a mind reading Sheldon Cooper.
That's accurate. It's a lot of awkward in one small container.
And very intelligent, awkward. One of the nice things that we see here is mainly because we get to see Adelgis with his hair down, in the sense that he's not uptight. We see him with his hair down all the time, but
He's not worried about his awkwardness in the same way that we usually see him.
I kind of was hoping to see him being like dancing on a table or something.
Just a little elf Irish jig on the table. Like,
yeah. So Zax is basically talking about how Vethka saved Zax's life. And Volk comes back with like, well, do you have a better idea for thanking her, Mister? I'll saunter over there and just make statements without any sort of real plan, because who needs those?
it's sassy. I like it.
Like Volk doesn't even need to be getting drunk right now. He's sassy. And then Evianna pulls him outside because he needs some air. She needs some air. And she goes to knight him because she's a princess. And she's like, well, he's going to be a real knight to me. And has him get down on one knee. And I totally was like, this is kind of, he's on his knee. Like maybe she's going to like hand him a ring and then be like, oh my God. Surprise. We're actually betrothed now. Thanks. But instead, she bends down, grabs his chin, and gives him a kiss. And this is where chapter 49 starts.
A distant tree. So her explanation for this kiss, because there's this little like awkward pause. It's kind of like, well, I'm of age now. Because that was like definitely the thing that was stopping him. It wasn't Addie at all. It was definitely like, oh, the fact that you're still underage.
Robbing the cradle.
Yes. Volk comes out with this like little fumble about like, oh, with Addie it never felt like that, and he counts it as a save. Evianna kind of comes back, but like I don't know if I would consider that like smooth by any means.
But for Volk,
it's a start.
It
is a start.
That's probably like the closest thing to a save he's ever done.
It is as far as we've known. So we do have the moment broken up. Mesos does spot something in the distance. It is a giant tree, which is the World Serpent lair. And we are informed that apparently this giant tree was on the back of the runestone the whole time, but nobody really knew about that because people are like, "Oh, are you sure it's the lair?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's on the runestone." That would have been nice to know. Zelfrey, of course, trying to bring some order, tells everyone to stop partying. They're going to be there in 14 hours, whatever, so they need to get some rest as much as they can. They do end up reaching the tree, and a couple of things kind of go on at the same time. One, Fane's death sense is just going crazy. He is really sensing that somebody's going to die. And as they're approaching the tree, they do notice that it is pretty much completely guarded by plague-ridden birds.
Chapter 50, the entrance to the world tree. I want to make one mention about the chapter titles, because it's that like every time I've had to look something up and I'm like, oh, look at the chapter title, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the next chapter then. Most of the time it's dead on like the last page or two for the chapter title. So they are getting really close to the tree. There's plague-ridden creatures, and they have snack pouches for days. They're basically gearing up for battle against the plague-ridden creatures. And also, how the hell did these plague-ridden creatures get there? It's a really, really, really long ways to go.
It's a long flight.
Like, I'm not trying to ruin the magic here, but dang.
I got questions.
Exactly. So Zelfrey makes a plan, basically having himself, Ilya, Evianna, Riker, Devlin, and Volk are going to be at the team going up and climbing the tree because it's honestly, it makes Gentle look like a baby turtle. That's just how massive this tree is. They basically have to climb straight up to get to where the entrance of the World Serpent lair is. We start to see some of these plague-ridden creatures coming to attack us as we're getting closer and closer. Gentle does kind of like anchor herself to the tree, and one of these awesome moments with Adelgis because we don't ever get to see him do offensive things. These plague-ridden creatures are trying to attack him, and he's just like tapping them and making them pass out because that's his ability. But like, it's perfect. And even Volk has this random thought of, I wonder if he gives them dreams when he makes them plummet to their death.
Also, a good question.
Right. Like, not necessarily something I have to know, but it would be great to have an idea. Mesos and Devlin are basically flying up, and Mesos gets blood all over her. She dives back into the ocean to wash it off. She is immune to the plague, so we're okay. It didn't have any open wounds. It wouldn't have mattered anyways, but either way, get it cleaned off. I had this thought of as soon as they get to the entrance to the world's with the lair to the door, because you know this has got to be some like fancy elaborate door. It's got the snake carved into it, and could just imagine that like, okay, so who's got the runestone? You you who I don't have it. Do you have it? Like it was just that like, oh shit of please tell me somebody brought it.
Spent months out trucking to get here only to find out you forgot it on your nightstand.
Son of a bitch. Go back. Before they enter in, Luther merges with Volk. He also kind of traps Moss in the shadow armor. And I kind of hope that he doesn't like squish her too hard because, like, how tight is the armor? Is it like clothing tight? Does he got room in there? Does it provide room for Moss to not be squeezed like of mice and men? Like,
It's got a little bulge in the armor part.
a perfectly mouse shaped bulge. Then they're staying there like I don't know what to do. How do we open the door? We have a runestone and we have a door. What are we supposed to do? And I mean, there aren't random. Yes, like it's not Skyrim where you have random symbols as you're walking up to the door to turn the runestones in the right direction. And it's not like a jade claw where it has the answer literally written in the palm of the claw to turn the dial to. So like what else would you do with the runestone? So
Just a
they
little tappy tap.
and Nicklin was like, I'm screw this. I'm just gonna teleport in there. And then he smashes into the door. They do end up tapping the runestone to the door, allowing it to open up. And just like that, chapter 51 starts, and we're gonna stop right there because ah roller coaster. One, roller coaster. Two, we're at the end of our 5 chapters. And it's just it would be too nice of us to continue. So you have to stick around for next week.
That does bring us to our bestiary. So the first one we're going to cover is the blue phoenix. So there is a lot of overlap with the red phoenix. So we'll kind of skip through where they're the same and just kind of note the differences. So there are several variances of phoenix. They all are associated with colors of flames: you white, orange, red, blue, etc. The blue phoenix is said to be more built like a heron, and they have sapphire feathers, silver eyes, and they still have that soot just constantly dropping off of them. Same trial of worth. They're also a tier 3. They love the charberries. When we get to their magic is where we start to see some of the differences. So they can still evoke flame, but it's a whole lot hotter. And instead to burn creatures that are normally immune to heat-based magic, still have the ability to kind of manipulate fire. But where they see the differences is they gain the ability to push magic into items. So it's really more about imbuing than it is about healing. So we'll see that kind of throughout their pattern as well. They aren't able to heal, but they can take things that are normally very brittle and make them hard, or if they're hard, make them malleable. Crafting with them, it does create an advantage because they are able to enhance everything with fire. They are able to shape and bend things in ways that you normally wouldn't be able to. They do share the exhaustion aura, and they still do share the same abilities where they're immune to cold and they heal faster. Where they differ, though, again, kind of true form wise, so they have a guy's true form where they have to craft a master weapon in order to achieve the true form. So that means really bringing kind of full power and talent into the weapon. Once they get their true form appearance, they do turn gold again, and they have that bright tail that's laced with silver, white, blue, red, kind of every color of the fire. But their ability is a little bit different. So instead of actually bringing back people from the dead, they're able to bring back items. So if a magical item breaks or you use up all the magic, you can restore that item to its prior state. But similar to the Red Phoenix, this is kind of an 8-use limit. So once those uses are all gone, they lose that ability. In world, they are considered to be rare, more beautiful than Phoenixes, and just because of their rarity, they're highly sought after. We did see that with Josei and Tyne, where everybody was trying to poach Tyne off, and Josei had to come in and save her. And again, still based on kind of that same mythology where their powers really revolve around fire and heat and the ability to rise from ash.
Of the artifacts or of the items that we've seen destroyed so far, what would you bring back with the Blue Phoenix ability?
I'm trying to think what Volk loses to decay dust, because I think that's where it, like, the most that we see things destroyed.
He loses Equalizer, the pistol,
The pistol.
and he loses the sword that Mathis
Mathis
and
had.
Luther made.
I'd take the pistol because he's got retribution already, which is way better. But the pistol is cool where it doesn't require the actual magic. So, did you have one in mind?
Equalizer. I thought that was just gotta shove the bullet in and fire.
It's such a cool concept.
I mean, I imagine Callisto has next book. Yes, Equalizer is definitely what I would go with myself. And then we'll move into the other creature that we're going to be talking about today, which is the Pegasus. We've seen the Pegasus back in Colosseum Arcanist a lot with the Thronehold Sky Legionnaires. Description, a reminder of them: they are horses with feathered wings. Basically, their wings match their coats. So if they have black raven wings, they have an ebony coat. If they have white hawk wings, then they have a brown coat. And then and they also have like a chestnut and ivory pattern. So those are pretty cool ones. And then sapphire wings with basically like for a blue jay. And they have a pale blue coat. Their trial of worth is, again, we've seen with Colosseum, is that they are basically agility and athletics during a race. They are a tier 2 creature, and I like that the unicorn and the Pegasus, those are tier 2s, not 3s. I don't know exactly how we made our delineance between the magic, obviously, because of like how much they can do, but I like that not everything is a tier 3, especially these bigger creatures that are definitely strong and powerful, just don't have as much. Their reproduction, they have progeny, so basically they live at top mountains, basically anything very high up, similar to griffins. Don't lay eggs, but they basically live birth like a horse would, and they only give birth and reproduce after consuming wailing grass, which is a magical flora found on moonlit evenings. They evoke and manipulate wind, and they augment weightlessness. I love this because you can load that thing up with as much as possible, and they would never have to worry about being over encumbered and not being able to run because they could just, it doesn't weigh anything. With imbuing, if they were to create an item, it basically would cause it to weigh less or be able to fly itself, depending on what the base component is. And with their aura, they have a formation aura. Basically, it's a whistle of gentle wind whipped around the area, and the Pegasus can choose who gains flight and who does not. And this ability is able to last until the formation aura is ended. They can choose their allies who will be able to fly on their own and cause anybody that is their enemies to basically be stuck on the ground. Their innate abilities are that they have enhanced speed, they have extremely good balance, and they can hold their breath for over 6 hours.
Not bad.
That's pretty freaking solid.
I mean, I've done better, but it's good for amateur hour.
6 hours, nothing. Their true form is a virtue. So again, their Arcanist has to embody the virtue of loyalty to the group, and that is including dedicating themselves to a specific cause or fighting for a benefit of the group rather than yourself. We completely understand why these are such great creatures for royal guards, protection, that kind of thing.
Very ally focused.
Yes. When Pegasus achieve their true form, they do end up growing a second set of smaller wings, and they actually grow a unicorn horn. Their eyes will glow golden, and their hooves will sparkle like gemstones. So they're like extra fabulous.
The fancy.
Their ability, true form ability, is alicorn resistance, and they are basically immune to poisons, venom, lightning, wind, and any weakening magics. So they're basically getting the best of both worlds between Unicorn and Pegasus. In world lore, Pegasi are often seen as mounts for great knights, over the sky legionaries, and Thronehold. They prefer to stick together in a flock per their nature. In real world inspiration, Pegasus was a specific winged horse in Greek mythology. For the Frith Chronicles, much of them were determined by birds, so mainly around the birds, different type. Because the Greek myth is so specific, though, a more generalized version of flight, wind, and flocks was used to create their power set. And I know Shami has talked about several times about how she creates her creatures, even though some things may be specific to, I know we saw an Enbrel early on in Crown Tournament's book that was based off of a very specific creature in Irish mythology. She's kind of explained how she bases her power set off of that. All right. And with that ends today's episode of 46 through 50 of World Serpent Arcanist. We're hitting that last 10 chapters. We all know how last 10 chapters of her book goes, so if you're reading this along, pretty much just accept the fact that you're not sleeping until you finish the book.
You're going to finish it.
You got to finish strong. Who needs sleep? We need answers, not sleep.
We've got a lot of questions. How did the plague birds get there?
Yes.
Eric, Scott, and I want to thank everyone for listening today. We post a new episode every Wednesday morning at 11 Eastern, 10 Central, and 8 Pacific Standard Time. We are on all podcasting platforms and are also on YouTube as well for video. After the additional episode airs, we post chapter-by-chapter videos every day in a smaller, easier-to-digest format. We do want to give a special shout-out to the final member of our team, Dan Mackison, one of the admins for the Frith Chronicles wiki, link listed below, and doing his best to keep everything running smoothly behind the scenes. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at frithguildpod@gmail.com or on Facebook or any other social media by searching for Frith Guild Podcast. Just to remind everybody, we have links to everything in the description below on both the podcast and YouTube. Scott, do you have anything else you want to add this week?
No. All set.
All right. We'll buckle on in because next week we're getting into the actual World Serpent lair. All right. Thanks, everybody.